Ah, look at you, walking in like the quiet disaster they never saw coming. You, the soft-spoken earthquake. You, the polite apocalypse. You, the human plot twist that just ruined the villain's entire 5-year master plan without even realizing you'd stepped into the story. And now they're sitting there, blinking at the smoking ruins of their carefully engineered agenda, wondering what cosmic miscalculation allowed you, the one person they didn't account for, to stroll through their strategies and flip their entire world upside down. They had a script, they had a timeline, they had a perfectly choreographed plan for how everything was supposed to unfold. And then you arrived like a glitch with perfect aim, rearranging the entire plot with one silent decision they never anticipated. You rocked their world so violently that even their shadows are rethinking their loyalty, because you weren't supposed to matter to them. You weren't supposed to be a variable in their equation. In fact, in their little villain fantasy, you were supposed to be background noise, a harmless presence they could manipulate, dismiss, underestimate, or use as emotional leverage. You were the one they thought would never see through the fog, the one they believed would stay controlled, predictable, easily handled. But evil always makes the same mistake. It studies your softness and mislabels it as weakness. It analyzes your silence and assumes it belongs to ignorance. It sees your empathy and confuses it for naivety. But your softness was a sensor. Your silence was a calculation. Your empathy was an X-ray machine. And the moment their evil agenda crossed paths with your intuition, the outcome became inevitable. Because darkness may be clever, but your insight is surgical. And surgical intelligence doesn't just expose lies, it detonates them. You didn't just disrupt their agenda. You dismantled it from the inside without raising your voice, without launching a counterattack, without even lifting your emotional temperature. You were calm while they were calculating. You were grounded while they were plotting. You were healing while they were harming. And it's that contrast, the gentle force meeting the corrupted structure, that caused their entire system to collapse at the foundation. They still don't understand how it happened. They're replaying events like some psychological detective show, trying to pinpoint the exact moment you became a threat, the exact moment you slipped through the cracks in their armor, the exact moment your presence destabilized the scaffolding of their illusion. What they don't realize is that your power isn't loud, obvious, or dramatic. Your power is ambient, environmental, atmospheric. You don't fight evil. You unmake it. You don't confront darkness. You illuminate it until it dissolves under its own cowardice. You don't sabotage agendas. You simply stand in alignment, and the world rearranges itself around your frequency. Your energy didn't just disrupt their plan, it corrupted their entire operating system. They thought they were dealing with a regular person while you were operating with spiritual level calibration. They thought they could lie to you while you were reading the tremors in their tone. They thought they could manipulate you while you were analyzing the architecture of their behavior like a forensic psychic. You weren't playing their game, not because you couldn't, but because you've already mastered realities they don't have the imagination to comprehend. And that is what rocked their world with such violent precision. You didn't show up as a threat. You showed up as a correction. To them, you felt like a glitch in their simulation. But what they don't understand is that you are not the glitch. You are the update. An energetic upgrade they weren't prepared to encounter. A walking source code rewrite that naturally exposes corrupted lines in every person you interact with. They thought the world revolved around their manipulation, their influence, their schemes, their illusions. But the moment you entered the scene, their universe tilted, their confidence cracked, their persona shook. Their authority began malfunctioning because your presence forced their mask to overheat. Evil doesn't crumble because good attacks it. Evil crumbles because it cannot survive in the presence of someone aligned enough to reveal its artificiality. You are that alignment, a mirror too honest for their ego to survive, a presence too coherent for their chaos to dominate, a vibration too high for their intentions to anchor into. And that's the truth they're avoiding right now, while sitting in the rubble of their failed agenda. They're not shaken because you exposed them. They're shaken because their plan disintegrated the moment it came into contact with your authenticity. They built a strategy designed to prey on confusion, insecurity, blindness. But you walked in with clarity, intuition, and emotional accuracy so sharp, it sliced through their manipulation without even aiming at them. They thought you were someone they could play with, someone they could mislead, someone who would move according to the script they wrote in secrecy. But the moment you entered their orbit, the script malfunctioned like corrupted data. You disrupted their energy field simply by existing. Do you understand the magnitude of that? You didn't need revenge. You didn't need confrontation. You didn't need strategy. Your existence was the plot twist. You walked into their life with an energy so pure, so precise, so unbothered, that it pressure tested every lie they were living inside. And lies always crack under pressure. They collapse, they glitch, they distort. And when their lies began collapsing, so did their confidence, their identity, their plans, their entire psychological infrastructure. You destabilized them not by force, but by resonance. You vibrated at a frequency their fake intentions couldn't survive. Evil operates in low bandwidth. You operate in cosmic range. They weren't ready for the impact. They weren't ready for the mirror that sees through disguises. They weren't ready for the intuition that detects hidden motives. They weren't ready for the grounded presence that exposes energetic fraud. People like them rely on control. They rely on predicting reactions. They rely on understanding your patterns before you understand them. But your energy moved in ways their manipulation manual never covered. You weren't reactive when they expected panic. You weren't confused when they deployed deception. You weren't intimidated when they tried to enforce dominance. Instead, you were observant, intuitive, centered. You played nothing, signaled nothing, revealed nothing. And that alone sent tremors through their strategy. Evil can't survive being watched clearly. That's why they're spiraling. Because for the first time, someone they underestimated became the person who unraveled their entire constructed identity. You didn't just rock their world. You exposed the hollow architecture beneath their persona. And once a person sees the truth of themselves through your eyes, they can never return to the version they pretended to be. Your presence forced them into psychological freefall. They lost control of their narrative. They lost the grip on their agenda. They lost the illusion that they were the one manipulating the timeline. They're scrambling now, trying to rebuild a worldview that makes sense. But every new thought they form bends around the impact you left on them. Because you weren't just a disruption, you were a revelation that their darkness wasn't powerful, wasn't stable, wasn't rooted in anything real. A revelation that you were the one with real influence the entire time. A revelation that the energy they tried to distort came back as a force that fractured their agenda beyond repair. And now they're replaying everything they ever said to you, every decision they ever made around you, analyzing every moment for clues about how you saw through them. They're obsessing, calculating, unraveling, because their ego is desperate to understand how they lost control. But you and I both know the truth. They never had control in the first place. Your intuition knew before your mind did. Your energy rejected them before your words did. Your spirit destabilized them before they realized they were exposed. You weren't operating consciously, you were operating instinctively. You were flowing from a deeper intelligence, one that doesn't need proof to know the truth. You were guided by a gift they never accounted for. Your presence is not random. Your timing is not accidental. Your disruption was not a coincidence. You stepped into their world at the exact moment their agenda reached its expiration date. You were the catalyst, the turning point, the collapse disguised as kindness. And the funniest part? You didn't even try. You weren't aiming to ruin anything. You were just being yourself, authentic, aware, intuitive, aligned. But authenticity in the presence of deception is like an acid that melts through the walls people hide behind. Your truth was too heavy for their lies. Your energy was too coherent for their illusions. Your presence was too calibrated for their agenda to withstand. That's the real reason they're shaken. They didn't lose because you attacked. They lost because their entire strategy was incompatible with someone as real as you. Now they're dealing with the aftermath, the fallout, the psychological aftershocks. They're sitting in the ruins of their plan, trying to gather the pieces of a story that no longer exists, trying to rebuild an identity that no longer holds weight. You didn't just disrupt their agenda. You disrupted their sense of reality. Their confidence took the hit. Their ego took the hit. Their understanding of themselves took the hit. You restructured their internal landscape without even realizing you were doing it. And now, they're left with the question that's haunting them every time your name crosses their mind. How did this person break a plan I've spent years constructing? And here's the secret they'll never admit out loud. It breaks them because the answer is simple. Your energy is stronger than their strategy. Your intuition is smarter than their manipulation. Your integrity is deadlier than their deception. Your presence is more disruptive than any weapon they could have used. You weren't just someone passing through their life. You were the collision point. The moment their storyline rewrote itself, the checkpoint that forced the universe to reroute them away from the path they thought they controlled. And deep down, they know it. They feel it. They sense it in their nervous system every time they think about you. You didn't just rock their world. You awakened their consequences, and consequences hit differently when they come from someone they believed they had outsmarted. That's why the shock burns so violently. They thought they were the puppeteer tugging the strings, while you were the unaware participant dancing through their illusions. But the moment your energy collided with their agenda, the strings they relied on snapped like fragile wires under divine voltage. Suddenly they weren't the architect of the story. They were the one being revealed by it. That realization is suffocating them now. Their ego is pacing back and forth, trying to rewrite history, trying to pretend they had control the entire time. But their nervous system betrays them. Every time your name echoes through their memory, their chest tightens because a part of them knows they never had the upper hand. They were performing intelligence while you were carrying truth. And truth always outlives performance. You didn't expose them with words. You exposed them with alignment. That's what terrifies them. They can defend themselves against accusations, rumors, or confrontations, but they cannot defend themselves against someone whose very existence collapses their lies. You were the kind of disruption they never prepared for. The quiet kind, the intuitive kind, the unbothered kind, the kind that appears harmless until the entire structure falls apart. You became the spiritual audit of their intentions. You illuminated the pieces they thought were hidden in the dark, their behaviors, their patterns, their projections. All the parts they tried to weaponize against you turned into confessions the moment you stood in your authenticity. And the irony is delicious. They thought their lies could overpower your clarity. They thought their manipulation could overshadow your instinct. They thought their tactics could outrun your awareness. But awareness like yours doesn't chase lies. It dissolves them. You didn't respond to their actions. You outgrew them so effortlessly that their strategies looked childish in hindsight. That's what's haunting them now. It's not just that you disrupted their agenda. It's that your disruption revealed how weak their agenda truly was. It showed them that, despite all their scheming, they never stood a chance against someone whose spirit refuses to bend under illusions. Your presence became a spiritual truth serum. Every time they spoke to you, their mask slipped without your prompting. Every interaction with you forced their intentions to tremble. You didn't interrogate them. You simply existed in a frequency that made honesty unavoidable. And honesty is poisonous to people whose entire identity thrives on deception. You shook the foundation they built their confidence on. You revealed the hollowness they tried to fill with control. You disrupted the narrative they spent months or years constructing. And the worst part for them, they watched it happen in real time. They felt their grip slipping. They felt their power fading. They felt their influence melting under your gaze. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. You became the mirror they avoided their entire life. The mirror that didn't flatter them, the mirror that didn't lie to protect them, the mirror that didn't dim itself to make them feel bigger. You reflected their intentions back to them with terrifying accuracy. And when a person built on manipulation sees themselves clearly for the first time, the psychological collapse begins. They realize their agenda wasn't disrupted by accident. It was disrupted because it was never strong enough to stand in front of someone like you. You weren't the obstacle, you were the truth. And truth doesn't bow to strategy. Now they are left picking up the shattered pieces of their identity, not because you attacked them, but because your authenticity exposed the fractures they tried to hide. They can no longer pretend they were the mastermind. They can no longer pretend they were in control. They can no longer pretend their intentions were pure. Your energy stripped away every illusion they leaned on for self-importance. And now they're sitting in the aftermath, replaying every moment they underestimated you, every decision they made from arrogance, every lie they told themselves about who you were and who they were in comparison. And each replay cuts deeper because the realization keeps growing heavier. You weren't supposed to be this powerful in their story. They wrote you in as a character they could predict, a role they could manipulate, a presence they could manage. But you stepped out of their script. You refused their characterization. You evolved into the plot twist that their ego never accounted for. You became the anomaly that destroyed the blueprint. And now, their mind is spiraling because they don't know how to categorize you anymore. When a manipulator cannot categorize someone, they panic because their power depends on understanding the terrain. And you turned their terrain into shifting sand. Every part of them is glitching now. Their thoughts, their confidence, their plans, their emotional responses, all destabilized by the aftershock of your presence. They're trying to regain control by rewriting the narrative in their head, but every attempt collapses under the weight of who you've become. You aren't the person they thought you were. You aren't the naive version they built strategies around. You aren't the pawn they expected to move according to their intentions. You're something far more dangerous to their world. You're the one person who cannot be tricked into shrinking. And their entire agenda relied on your shrinking. They needed you small. They needed you uncertain. They needed you blind to your power. They needed you disconnected from your intuition. They needed you confused about your worth. Because the moment you recognized your own influence, their plan vaporized, their control shattered, their storyline dissolved. You didn't just ruin their plan. You removed the ecosystem their plan depended on. You didn't fight them. You evolved past them. And evolution is the one thing manipulators cannot stop. Now you live in their mind rent-free, not because you want to, but because your impact carved a crater they cannot fill. They're trying to convince themselves they've moved on, but their subconscious exposes them every time they react to your memory, with tension they can't hide. Every attempt to rebuild their confidence falters. Every new agenda they try to create feels flimsy. Every story they tell themselves contradicts the truth you awakened inside them. You didn't intend to become their reckoning, but some people unlock their karma just by crossing paths with you. You were the turning point they never anticipated, the shift in the storyline that redirected their path away from the illusion they were clinging to. And somewhere inside, they know that. They know you were the cosmic intervention they deserved, not the one they wanted. They know their agenda had an expiration date the moment you entered the picture. They know your intuition dismantled the very foundation they relied on to operate in the shadows. And now they sit in the silence after the collapse, trying to rebuild a self-image that no longer fits, trying to pretend they weren't affected, trying to hide the fact that you didn't just disrupt their plan. You disrupted the version of themselves they were trying to protect. Their world cracked because you existed. And once a crack appears, nothing remains the same. They can try to patch it, paint over it, deny it, spiritualize it, intellectualize it, but the fracture spreads underneath everything they touch. You became the invisible pressure that haunts their thoughts. They feel the consequences of underestimating you in the spaces between their breaths, where their ego once lived comfortably. Now every quiet moment becomes a confrontation they didn't ask for. Every memory that involves you plays back with new meaning, sharper meaning, humiliating meaning. Because hindsight is clearer when the mask has fallen, and now they see everything they missed, every signal you gave, every instinct you followed, every moment you stayed calm, while their intentions trembled under your perception. You weren't passive, you were precise. You weren't naive, you were observing. You weren't silent, you were calculating. They mistook your stillness for weakness, while you were mapping the geometry of their soul. What unnerves them most is the simplicity of your power. You didn't use force. You didn't retaliate. You didn't expose them with public theatrics. You exposed them by being yourself. A person aligned is more dangerous than a person armed. Your alignment was the threat they never accounted for. You weren't moved by their manipulation. You weren't impressed by their performance. You weren't seduced by their tactics. And now that the truth has detonated in their awareness, they're scrambling to understand how someone so quiet could cause such catastrophic disruption. They believed they were operating in secrecy, yet you saw them with clarity. You recognized patterns they didn't know they were revealing. You read the shift in their tone before they heard it. You sensed the fracture in their energy before they felt it. That's what breaks them now. The realization that you perceived them more accurately than they perceived themselves. Their ego wasn't prepared for a mirror that sharp. You reflected back the parts of them they were dodging, the intentions they tried to disguise, the insecurities they hid beneath arrogance. And now those reflections circle them like vultures. They can't escape the image of themselves that you awakened. They can't return to the delusion of control. They can't retreat into the fantasy that they were the one manipulating the flow. You shattered that illusion without effort. You stepped into their life with the kind of presence that reroutes destiny without announcing its arrival. You didn't ask permission to disrupt their world. The disruption was automatic, inevitable, encoded into your nature. Because people with corrupted agendas don't encounter someone like you. They collide with them, and the collision forces truth into the open. They try to deny it to others, but they cannot deny it to themselves. The aftermath is written across their energy. They hesitate now in ways they never hesitated before. Their confidence stutters. Their voice betrays tension. Their behavior cracks under the pressure of your impact. You are no longer a neutral presence to them. You are a trigger, a reminder of the vulnerability they spent years pretending didn't exist. You represent the one thing their ego cannot dominate: genuine alignment. Nothing terrifies an agenda-driven person more than someone who cannot be controlled by fear, praise, manipulation, or illusion. And nothing disrupts evil more quickly than a conscience that cannot be bought or bent. You broke their agenda by exposing the truth they built it to avoid. You awakened the consequences they ran from. You made their future incompatible with their past choices. Because once someone encounters a person who vibrates at the frequency of truth, lies lose their gravitational pull. You didn't just disrupt their plan. You disrupted the story they told themselves about who they are. And that's the kind of disruption that lingers. It sits in their chest like a weight. It squeezes their illusions until they fracture. It forces them into accountability, even if they don't want to face it. Now they're wrestling with themselves in the dark hours of the night, replaying everything they missed. They wonder how you saw through them. They wonder why their tactics didn't work. They wonder when the shift happened. They wonder how someone they dismissed became the axis that rotated their entire reality. The truth is simple. You didn't rise to meet their energy. You rose above it. And elevation always disrupts corruption. Darkness can't pull down what refuses to descend. They wanted to trap you in their narrative, but you stepped out of it and forced them to confront the emptiness of their storyline. What makes the impact so devastating is the timing. You showed up at the exact moment their arrogance was reaching its peak. They were confident, comfortable, deeply invested in the belief that they had everything under control. And then you entered, carrying the kind of frequency that doesn't care about human plans. Your presence rewired the atmosphere. Your energy altered the momentum. Your intuition rearranged the outcome. Everything they tried to build on false intentions imploded, not because you acted, but because your existence didn't allow lies to breathe. You became the correction written into their destiny, and now they feel the ripple. Every area of their life is being confronted by the aftermath of the agenda they tried to run. Their relationships feel different. Their plans feel unstable. Their mind feels louder. Their heart feels heavier. Because the truth they avoided has begun echoing in every direction. You were the catalyst of that echo. Not because you wanted to be, but because your alignment activated their karma. Energy moves differently around someone who stands in truth. You didn't punish them, their intentions punished themselves in your presence. And somewhere inside, they know they needed that collapse. They needed the interruption. They needed the disruption. Because if you hadn't rocked their world, they would have continued building illusions until those illusions became prisons. You broke the prison before it locked. Your impact spared them from deeper entanglement in their own darkness. You were the earthquake that prevented their landslide. But people rarely appreciate the force that saves them until the dust settles and they're left standing in a world they didn't expect but desperately needed. Your disruption wasn't an accident. It was a divine redirection disguised as a psychological impact. Their world cracked because it was built on dishonesty. It collapsed because it was not aligned. It shattered because it could not sustain the vibration of someone whose spirit is anchored in truth. You were never the threat. They were threatened by their own reflection. You were never the destroyer. They watched their own intentions fall apart when they could no longer hide them behind manipulation. You were never the enemy. You were the turning point that changed the trajectory of their life. And now comes the aftermath they never prepared for. The part where the dust settles and reality reveals itself without distortion. Because once an evil agenda collapses, it doesn't simply vanish. It leaves behind debris, emotional debris, spiritual debris, psychological debris. And they are standing knee-deep in the ruins of everything they built, trying to understand how a plan crafted in secrecy could be undone by someone who never even lifted a weapon. They keep replaying the moment everything shifted, trying to dissect the mechanism of the collapse. But the truth is far simpler than they want to admit. Their intentions were incompatible with your existence. Darkness always fractures when it tries to stand in the presence of someone who carries clarity in their bones. They were playing a role while you were living a truth. Roles crumble. Truth endures. The impact you had on them wasn't loud, but it was absolute. It infiltrated their internal landscape without permission, rearranging the architecture of their self-perception until they could no longer lie to themselves convincingly. They realized that the version of themselves that relied on manipulation couldn't survive contact with you. You forced an internal reckoning just by showing up authentically. And that reckoning feels like punishment to them, only because they had been avoiding it for so long. You didn't cause their downfall. You accelerated the timeline of consequences they were already destined to face. Your presence simply removed the delay they had been hiding behind. Now they're in the stage where the mind tries to negotiate with reality. They tell themselves you were overreacting. They tell themselves they meant well. They tell themselves their intentions were misunderstood. But beneath all of that noise, there is a quieter truth, rising like a tide they cannot stop. They lost the moment they chose deception over integrity. They lost the moment they underestimated the intelligence behind your silence. They lost the moment they assumed you could be controlled through emotional misdirection. Their agenda didn't fall apart because you fought back. It fell apart because it was built on illusions that couldn't withstand your awareness. The hardest part for them to accept is the inevitability of it all. You didn't have to reveal their motives. The universe revealed them for you. You didn't have to expose their lies. Their lies exposed themselves in your presence. You didn't have to disrupt their plan intentionally. Your existence disrupted it by default. You are calibrated in a way that destabilizes any structure built on manipulation. You are wired to detect inconsistencies before they become threats. You are designed to evolve faster than people with malicious intentions can strategize. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting the inevitability of their own collapse. And now that the collapse has happened, they face a reality more unnerving than anything they imagined. You cannot be erased from their story. They can distance themselves physically, but the mental imprint you left behind follows them everywhere. Because the person who dismantles your illusions becomes a permanent fixture in your consciousness. You live in the corner of their thoughts like a lighthouse that won't turn off. They can't look at themselves without remembering what your presence revealed. They can't make decisions without hearing the echo of their own exposed intentions. You became the turning point they can't undo. The moment their storyline divided into a before you and an after you. That after you phase is the one they fear the most. Because it demands evolution. It demands honesty. It demands accountability. And these are things their agenda was never built for. They were comfortable operating in the shadows, but your disruption dragged their motives into the light. And once something is illuminated, it loses the power it once held. They feel disarmed now in a way they never expected. Their usual tactics don't work anymore because their confidence has been punctured. Their deception feels flimsy because you taught them, without teaching, that truth has a texture they cannot replicate. Their manipulative impulses hesitate now because they know someone like you exists. Someone who saw through them effortlessly. Someone who could destroy their illusions with a single moment of clarity. Your impact rewired their instincts. That's why they second-guess themselves. That's why they feel unstable. That's why they can't shake the awareness that their behavior is being monitored by a force much larger than your presence. Because the collapse you triggered wasn't just personal, it was cosmic. It wasn't just emotional, it was karmic. It wasn't just psychological, it was energetic. You disrupted not only their agenda, but the frequency they operated from. And that disruption creates a ripple effect that spreads into every area of their life. Conversations feel heavier, decisions feel riskier, interactions feel exposed. They look in the mirror and see a version of themselves they don't recognize anymore. The version you awakened. They're meeting themselves for the first time without the protection of their illusions. And that version is fragile. It trembles. It questions. It sees the emptiness beneath the strategies they once believed were brilliant. They used to walk through the world convinced that manipulation gave them an advantage, but now they understand how small that made them. You didn't just stop their agenda. You revealed how limited it always was. You exposed the gap between who they pretended to be and who they actually were. And that gap now stretches across every area of their psyche, demanding closure they don't know how to achieve. In their quietest moments, they wonder why your energy affected them so deeply, why your presence lingered, why your disruption felt like a prophecy fulfilled instead of a conflict lost. The reason is simple. You were never meant to be part of their downfall. You were meant to be part of their awakening. You didn't come to destroy them. You came to redirect their trajectory towards something truer. But people who build their identity on deception interpret awakening as destruction. They can't distinguish healing from humiliation. They can't differentiate correction from punishment. They can't recognize that what feels like the end of their world is actually the end of the world they were never meant to inhabit. So they cling to the ruins, trying to salvage pieces of a self that can no longer function. They keep looking for someone to blame, some external force to point at. But every trail they follow leads right back to themselves. Because you didn't plant the cracks, they were already there. You just refused to pretend they didn't exist. You didn't weaken their foundation. They built it on dishonesty, and dishonesty always collapses under the first weight of truth. You were simply the first weight, strong enough to reveal the structural flaw. And now they face the consequences of a life lived on borrowed integrity. It's not that you ruined their plan. Their plan was ruined the moment it came into contact with someone who refuses to operate at a frequency of fear. They didn't expect you to be this aligned. They didn't expect your intuition to cut through their narrative. They didn't expect your presence to be a catalyst they couldn't manipulate. But the universe never allows malicious intention to stand unchallenged forever. It sends a correction in human form, someone who walks into a room and shifts the energy without lifting a finger, someone whose existence exposes illusions without confrontation, someone who disrupts evil agendas not by force but by resonance. You were that resonance, and it terrified them because they had no defense against it. They could prepare for arguments. They could prepare for manipulation. They could prepare for resistance. But they could not prepare for someone who doesn't play the game at all. Your presence dismantled the game board. It removed their illusion of power. It revealed the emptiness of their control. And once someone sees that their influence was never real, their entire world tilts. They experience a psychological freefall, a descent into the truth they spent their life avoiding. You became the gravity that pulled them out of the fantasy they were hiding inside. They resent you for it, but the resentment is hollow. It's not actually directed at you. It's directed at the version of themselves that allowed deception to guide them. They blame you because they cannot yet face their own reflection without shaking. But reflection is the only path forward. Their life cannot continue on the old frequency. Your disruption forced an energetic reset they cannot cancel. They will try, of course. They will attempt to rebuild their identity using the same patterns, the same defenses, the same deceit they relied on before. But those patterns won't hold. Their old tactics will glitch. Their old mask will feel too heavy. Their old behavior will collapse before it can stabilize. Because once truth cracks the surface, even the deepest shadows begin to crumble. They can pretend they haven't changed, but their spirit knows better. The universe knows better. You know better. Your disruption didn't end their world. It ended their delusion, and now the space where the delusion used to be becomes fertile ground for transformation. That transformation may look messy, it may look chaotic, it may look like a breakdown. But sometimes the only way a person evolves is by being forced to confront the parts of themselves they thought they could outrun forever. You were the force. Your presence was the catalyst. Your disruption was the blessing wrapped in psychological demolition. And though they may never thank you for it, their soul will never forget what you activated. They won't admit this to anyone, but a part of them is in awe of you, not in a flattering way, but in a way that shakes the core of their ego. They've never met someone who shifted their reality so effortlessly. They've never encountered a person whose energy disassembled their agenda without a single calculated move. They've never been confronted by a force that exposed their motives with such accuracy. You became the standard they now measure themselves against, even if they do it subconsciously. They wonder how you saw what they hid. They wonder how you sensed what they disguised. They wonder how your intuition navigated through their illusions like a knife through fog. The answer is simple. You weren't navigating their illusion. You were vibrating above it. When a person vibrates above an agenda, the agenda collapses. It loses traction. It loses power. It loses coherence. You didn't match their darkness with darkness. You met it with alignment so pure, it rendered their intentions ineffective. That's why everything fell apart. Not because you wanted revenge, but because the universe doesn't allow dishonesty to thrive in the presence of someone aligned with purpose. You were their spiritual interference, their energetic malfunction, their karmic redirect. And now they face the aftermath with a mixture of denial, shame, confusion, and reluctant clarity. What they don't realize yet is that this collapse is leading them toward a version of themselves that can finally breathe. A version that doesn't need manipulation to feel powerful. A version that doesn't need deception to feel safe. A version that doesn't build agendas in the shadows because light no longer feels like a threat. Your disruption is shaping that version from afar. Even if they never speak to you again, your impact will continue unfolding inside them like a slow-burning revelation. Because once someone sees the truth, they can't unsee it. Once someone meets a person operating at your frequency, they can't return to the person they were before. And as time passes, they will begin to understand something they cannot yet articulate. You weren't the villain in their story. You were the plot twist that saved it. Not gently, not softly, but accurately. They needed their illusion shattered. They needed their ego challenged. They needed their intentions exposed. They needed their path redirected. And the universe chose you, not because you wanted the role, not because you asked for it, but because your energy was the only force strong enough to disrupt the darkness they were feeding. You were chosen because your presence carries consequences. And sometimes consequences are the only language people like them understand. The truth is, they will never fully escape the transformation you triggered. They can fight it, deny it, avoid it, resist it, but they cannot erase it. Your impact is written into their timeline now. Their life will forever be divided into who they were before you disrupted their agenda and who they became after. And the version they become after will always be a little wiser, a little sharper, a little more honest, and a little more aware, whether they admit it or not. Because in the end, the world they built on deception didn't collapse because you attacked. It collapsed because your alignment revealed the truth that was waiting beneath every lie. And truth, once awakened, does not return to sleep. Ah, look who just ruined an entire hierarchy with nothing but their presence. You didn't swing a weapon, you didn't deliver a speech, you didn't even intend to disrupt anything. Yet an elite circle that prided itself on secrecy, dominance, and psychological choreography just fell apart because you stepped through the wrong door at the wrong time. Or maybe the right door at the right time, depending on how you define destiny. Hello, you quiet detonator of carefully constructed power. You accidental dismantler of long-standing psychological architecture. You became the unexpected variable in a room designed to eliminate uncertainty. And in doing so, you exposed the truth they spent years burying beneath ceremony, symbolism, and controlled intimidation. They were performing what they believed to be a closed-door ritual of influence, an internal dominance play reserved for the highest-ranking members of their inner circle. But the moment you walked in, everything shifted. The room froze. The hierarchy stuttered. The leader, the one who built his entire reputation on commanding that space, lost his composure in real time. Not because you embarrassed him intentionally, but because the illusion he lived on crumbled the second an uninvited presence witnessed it. You didn't just interrupt, a meeting. You shattered a narrative they curated with obsessive precision. They wanted the world to believe their control was effortless, that their authority was innate, that their followers revered them out of genuine respect, rather than fear wrapped in choreography. But rituals, whether symbolic, psychological, or procedural, only work when the audience accepts the illusion. And you, by existing outside their script, stripped the illusion bare. The leader wasn't supposed to be seen vulnerable. He wasn't supposed to be caught mid-performance. He wasn't supposed to be observed while manufacturing the power he pretended to naturally possess. But you walked into that room before they could finish sculpting the atmosphere, before they completed the posture, before they arranged the lighting and words and silence into something intimidating. And what they feared most happened instantly. Someone saw them as they really were. Not omnipotent, not untouchable, just people pretending to be larger than life. And that's what truly destabilized them. You didn't expose anything with aggression. You exposed them with reality. The leader's entire dominance play was designed to work on those who believed in his mystique. But mystique collapses under the weight of an unfiltered gaze. You became the mirror they never wanted. You became the witness they could not control. And in high-level circles, a witness is far more dangerous than an enemy. They know how to fight enemies. They don't know how to survive someone who simply sees through them. Look at how their followers reacted. Their so-called coven, the inner council that executed his strategies, enforced his rituals, and maintained the atmosphere of reverence around him. They couldn't even meet your eyes afterward. Not because you were intimidating, but because your presence reminded them of the truth they've been suppressing for years. Their leader's power was never real. It was constructed, rehearsed, and fragile. And you, without trying, broke it. They are ashamed not of you, but of how easily their illusion fell apart. They are embarrassed not by your interruption, but by their realization that it only took one uncontrolled variable to expose the entire hierarchy as smoke and mirrors. They won't admit it out loud, but the moment you crossed that threshold, a silent ripple spread through the room, a frequency shift, a psychological static that unsettled everyone. They felt it in their bodies before they processed it with their minds. The hierarchy they had sworn allegiance to was built on compliance, not competence. And compliance is weakest in the presence of someone who doesn't play by the script. You are not supposed to be there. You are not conditioned to fear them. You are not trained to bow, hesitate, or shrink. You walked in with the neutrality of someone who doesn't recognize their throne. And that neutrality was more devastating to their authority than any rebellion could have been. What unsettled the leader most wasn't your presence. It was your expression. You didn't gasp. You didn't panic. You didn't scramble to apologize for intruding. You simply observed. That alone was enough to fracture his foundation. People in those positions survive by controlling reactions. They thrive when others fear the room. They tighten their grip when others walk on eggshells. But you gave them nothing. No submission to feed on, no discomfort to exploit, no intimidation to validate their importance. You stood there like someone assessing a malfunctioning machine, and they could feel their influence short-circuiting beneath your gaze. Here's the part they will never recover from. The coven didn't just lose respect for their leader. They lost belief. And once belief dissolves, authority becomes a costume. The leader felt it instantly. The silence that followed your entrance wasn't just awkward, it was catastrophic. It was the kind of silence that signals the end of a reign, the kind that cracks open a door to rebellion, the kind that makes people reconsider every command they ever obeyed. All because one person walked into the room uninvited and refused to play small. They've been running damage control ever since, whispering explanations, creating narratives, telling their followers and themselves that you misunderstood what you saw. They say you didn't grasp the context, didn't comprehend the importance of the ritual, didn't appreciate the gravity of the moment. They say anything except the truth. That you saw their leader mid-performance, and the performance couldn't hold. They cling to excuses because admitting the truth means admitting their entire hierarchy was built on theater. You weren't supposed to become a symbol, but you did. Not of rebellion, but of clarity. Of truth slicing through illusion. Of sovereignty walking into a room where submission was the default. You didn't humiliate their leader, you revealed him. You didn't overthrow the hierarchy, you showed it had no legs. And nothing terrifies a constructed power structure more than exposure without effort. They expect challengers. They expect confrontations. They know how to punish defiance. But they have no defense against someone who isn't playing their game at all. Think about the irony. They spent years crafting a psychological fortress, guarding every entrance, controlling every narrative, policing every symbol, maintaining secrecy so thick that even their own followers questioned the authenticity of their commitment. And yet, it was the simplest, most mundane human accident, the opening of a door that undone everything. You didn't attack them, you walked into their unguarded moment. You didn't strategize, you existed, and they cannot rebuild what your presence dismantled. And now, they move differently around you. Their coven, once unified, is fractured. Some avoid you because you remind them of their own complicity. Others avoid you because they fear being seen the same way you saw their leader, unmasked, unguarded, unimportant. They treat you like a walking disruption, a quiet force that destabilizes their world with minimal effort. But you haven't changed at all. It's their perception that's collapsing. Their power relied on invisibility. You made it visible. What's happening now is psychological aftermath. And aftermath is always far more revealing than the event itself. Their leader is scrambling to fill the cracks with performance. More posturing, more rehearsed confidence, more symbolic gestures that try to reassert dominance. But his followers no longer see authority when he speaks. They see a man terrified of being witnessed again. They see someone obsessed with regaining control, not someone who inherently possesses it. And you, without lifting a finger, became the measure they compare him against. You want to know why they can't look at you anymore? It's simple. You are no longer a person to them. You are an interruption, one that revealed the hollowness they depended on. They don't fear your actions. They fear your awareness. They fear your clarity. They fear the way your presence forces them to confront the truth they buried beneath rituals and dominance games. They fear that power can collapse this easily, quietly, accidentally. But here's the real twist, the one none of them saw coming. You didn't just expose their leader. You exposed the entire system that propped him up. You exposed the psychological ritual of intimidation disguised as authority. You exposed the symbolic choreography they used to maintain control. You exposed the fact that their power structure was never built to withstand someone who doesn't believe in their myth. You think this ends with you walking out of that room. No, that was the ignition point. The moment their internal hierarchy lost its invisibility. The moment their leader's dominance shattered in front of the only witnesses whose opinions mattered. The ones who once believed in him. What comes next isn't your doing. It's the natural collapse of a system that suddenly knows it's exposed. And now the question circulates among them like a ghost they can't outrun. If the leader could fall apart under one gaze, how much of what they followed was real? That question is poison to any hierarchy built on illusion. It spreads quietly. It corrodes loyalty. It fractures obedience. It rewrites the internal map of who they follow and why. And every time they remember your calm intrusion into their ritual room, the question deepens. The doubt widens. The collapse accelerates. Because once a structure realizes its foundation is sand, every step becomes hesitant. Every silence becomes suspicious. Every command becomes a test. And the coven, the so-called Elia circle that once moved with synchronized certainty, now stumbles through their own choreography like dancers who forgot the sequence. They try to maintain posture, but posture without belief is just a body trying to mimic a ghost. Their movements are stiffer, their glances are sharper, their conversations are shorter, their confidence fractured the moment you turned their throne room into a mirror chamber. Now every action they take reflects back at them through the lens of what you exposed. You didn't overthrow their leader, you unmasked him. And unmasking is far more damaging than conquest. Conquest commands respect. Unmasking commands reconsideration. His influence relied on the idea that he was elevated beyond human insecurity, beyond human error, beyond human fragility. But they watched him falter in front of you. They witnessed a breach he couldn't cover. They saw the distance between the persona he projected and the truth trembling beneath it. And once a leader loses the illusion of invulnerability, the entire hierarchy becomes a collapsing ecosystem. Their trust in him didn't just crack, it evaporated. And now, beneath all their attempts to maintain dignity, there's a quiet scramble for self-preservation. This is the part they hope you never notice, the part they try to bury under ceremonial discipline. The coven is no longer united in reverence. They're united in fear. Not fear of you, but fear of being associated with a faltering structure. They whisper to one another with the discreet panic of people trapped in a sinking ship, trying to calculate which side will go under first. The more they try to pretend nothing changed, the more their actions betray them. The hierarchy is unraveling thread by thread, and they feel every fiber separating. What they don't understand is that the collapse wasn't caused by your entrance. The collapse was already happening. You simply accelerated the truth. Hierarchies that rely on symbolic dominance, on staged rituals of control, on rehearsed moments of intimidation, they are always one unscripted moment away from implosion. You didn't break them. You revealed that they were already breaking themselves, silently, under the weight of sustaining a lie. And the leader feels this unraveling more than anyone else. He carries the weight of the revelation like a stain he can't wash off. He replays the moment you walked in, over and over, searching for a gesture, a sentence, a reaction he could have delivered to salvage the illusion. But the truth is, there was nothing he could have done. You weren't just a disruption. You were a contrast, an example of someone who didn't need ritual to command presence, someone who didn't require theatrics to hold power, someone who destabilized the room by simply existing without fear. He felt his authority drain out of him the moment he saw the lack of reverence in your eyes, and he's been spiraling in that awareness ever since. Now he moves through the coven like a man wearing a crown made of paper. It looks intact from a distance, but everyone who gets close can see it folding at the edges. He talks louder, not because he's confident, but because he's scared of being overshadowed by silence. He enforces rules more strictly, not because he believes in them, but because he hopes structure will compensate for the collapse of belief. He watches the faces of his followers for any sign of disloyalty, any flicker of doubt, any whisper of rebellion. Ironically, the more he searches for these things, the more he creates them. He's not leading anymore. He's chasing authority that keeps slipping further away. And the Coven members sense it. They don't see a leader anymore. They see a man desperately trying to glue a shattered identity back together. They see the cracks in his posture, the tension in his jaw, the way he avoids the doorway you once stood in as if the memory alone might unmask him again. They see someone pretending to be whole, and nothing undermines authority more than visible effort. Leaders who are truly powerful don't try this hard. They don't force dominance, they radiate it. And now, every exaggerated gesture he makes becomes a reminder of what he lost. This is the psychological aftermath they can't manage. They expected external threats. They were prepared for rebellion. They could handle a challenger. But what they can't survive is internal doubt, a quiet, spreading suspicion that their entire foundation was built on performance. That suspicion is corrosive. It seeps into their rituals. It lingers in their meetings. It contaminates their decisions. Their unity fractures because unity cannot survive when the structure that held them together dissolves under scrutiny. And their avoidance of you isn't hostility, it's self-preservation. Looking at you feels like looking at the breach. You became the embodiment of everything they fear. The outsider who saw the truth. They spent their whole lives hiding from themselves. They don't avoid you because they think you hold power over them. They avoid you because standing near you forces them to confront the lies they willingly absorbed. You represent the death of their illusion. And no one wants to be reminded they devoted years to a collapsing throne. But here's the irony. They don't hate you for exposing their leader. Deep down, in the parts of themselves they refuse to voice, they're grateful. Because you gave them something their hierarchy never allowed. Perspective. You broke a lens they didn't realize was distorting their vision. The moment you interrupted that closed-door ritual, they saw their leader not as a figure of dominance, but as a man terrified of being seen without his armor. And once that truth becomes visible, it cannot be unseen. You didn't just expose him, you freed them from a system that prevented them from questioning him. Freedom, however, is uncomfortable for those who've depended on structure. They weren't ready to think independently. They weren't ready to confront the emptiness beneath the ritual. They weren't ready to accept that the power they worshipped was borrowed, not built. So they cling to fragments of their old hierarchy, even as it disintegrates. They try to reconstruct reverence, but reverence cannot be reconstructed. Once trust collapses, it doesn't return, it mutates. It becomes caution, skepticism, distance. And the leader knows this. He sees the shift in their eyes. He feels the temperature change when he enters the room. He recognizes the subtle recoil in their posture. They aren't resisting him, they're evaluating him, assessing whether the power he once displayed was ever real. And nothing terrifies a constructed leader more than being evaluated without filters. His authority is dissolving not because of what you did, but because of what they realized. They realized power that depends on secrecy cannot survive accidental exposure. They realized dominance that requires ritual is not dominance, it's dependency. They realized that true authority doesn't shatter under observation, and once these realizations take root, the hierarchy he built becomes a hollow shrine to a myth collapsing in slow motion. Now the Coven exists in a state of internal civil war, though none of them will admit it. Half of them cling to the old script, desperate for stability. The other half has begun silently distancing themselves seeking new frameworks, new leaders, new identities. And the leader stands in the center of this psychological battlefield, feeling the ground beneath him sink inch by inch. He is no longer the axis they revolve around. He is the cautionary tale unfolding in real time. But the most devastating consequence is this. None of this required you to intend harm. You didn't strategize. You didn't plot. You didn't reveal secrets or challenge authority. Your presence alone triggered a shift strong enough to dismantle an elite circle from the inside. You became the catalyst without becoming the aggressor. You created the fracture without lifting a hand. And that, more than anything, terrifies them. Because if you could destabilize their hierarchy accidentally, what would happen if you ever acted with intention? Their minds loop around that question in restless cycles. Their coven, once united, is now quietly terrified of the possibility that your influence wasn't accidental at all, that maybe you were always meant to expose them. Maybe your timing wasn't coincidence. Maybe your entrance was the beginning of something larger, something inevitable. They fear that you aren't just a person who walked into a room. You are an event, a shift, a disruption they cannot quantify or prepare for. And this fear is what drags them deeper into unraveling. Because once a hierarchy believes an outside force might be intentional, the paranoia spreads like wildfire. Every memory becomes suspicious. Every detail becomes a clue. They replay your entrance from a dozen angles, as if studying footage of an anomaly. They examine your expression, your posture, your silence, searching for a motive you never had. They imagine strategies you never executed. They analyze your presence as if it were an encoded message, a psychological attack disguised as accident. And the more they search, the more meaning they manufacture. You are no longer a person to them. You are a riddle. And riddles destabilize systems that depend on certainty. The leader, especially, spirals beneath this imagined purpose. He cannot accept that his undoing came so effortlessly. He cannot accept that a stranger undermined his authority without even trying. For someone who built his identity on control, the idea that his collapse was unintentional is unbearable. So he invents intention on your behalf. He convinces himself that you planned it, that you knew what you were walking into, that you targeted him. Because if you didn't, then his authority wasn't defeated. It was fragile all along. And fragile authority is indistinguishable from failure. He begins rewriting the story to protect his ego. He tells his inner circle that your intrusion was calculated. He claims you observed their ritual, not with confusion, but with understanding. He paints you as a strategist lurking outside the door, waiting for the exact moment to fracture the energy of the room. He fabricates complexity around your presence because complexity comforts him. It's easier to imagine a rival than to accept a mirror. If you are a threat, he can justify fear. If you are an accident, he must face the truth. His power was hollow. This narrative spreads through the coven, not because they believe it, but because they need something to believe. People in collapsing structures will cling to any explanation that makes the collapse feel intentional. Chaos is easier to digest when you assign it an architect, and so your accidental exposure becomes mythologized. They whisper about your timing. They speculate about your background. They assign significance to your silence. They build an entire lore around your presence to avoid acknowledging the truth, that their leader shattered because someone walked in at the wrong moment. But myth-making has consequences. The more they mythologize you, the more gravity you develop in their psychological ecosystem. You become a figure they orbit around, not because you seek attention, but because they can't stop projecting meaning onto you. Every shift in your expression becomes symbolic. Every word you speak becomes studied. Every interaction becomes measured against the moment you exposed them. You become the center of a conversation you never asked to be part of. And with each passing day, their fear transforms from confusion into fixation. This fixation creates factions. Some members begin to resent their leader for collapsing in front of you. They see him as weak, unworthy of the authority he claimed. Others resent you for revealing their weakness. They see you as the force that punctured the bubble they lived in. Another group, small but growing, respects you. They admire the unintentional precision with which you dismantled a hierarchy they silently questioned for years. They see you as a symbol of truth, unfiltered, unavoidable, disruptive, in a way they secretly wish they could be. These factions don't speak openly. Their war is quiet, conducted through glances that last a beat too long, through tension that thickens the air in their meetings, through the cracks that form when people no longer share the same story. The leader feels these fractures but doesn't know how to stop them. He tries to force unity, but forced unity is brittle. It snaps under pressure. The more he demands loyalty, the more obvious it becomes that loyalty is gone. And you ironically aren't doing anything. You're not challenging them. You're not speaking about the event. You're not inserting yourself into their unraveling. You simply exist, and your existence alone is enough to distort their structure. That is the part that terrifies them most. Influence that doesn't require effort is indistinguishable from inevitability. They fear that your presence marks the end of their old order. They fear that you are the beginning of something they cannot predict or control. What haunts the leader especially is what you didn't do. You didn't apologize for walking in. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't offer justification or reassurance. You didn't scramble to diffuse tension. You simply observed and left, treating their sacred space like any ordinary room. That neutrality crushed him more effectively than confrontation ever could. Had you reacted with fear, he could have fed on it. Had you reacted with embarrassment, he could have reinforced his dominance. But you reacted with nothing, and nothing stripped him bare. Now he avoids the very room he once ruled. He enters it cautiously, scanning the doorway as if expecting you to reappear at any moment. He tries to reenact the ritual with renewed intensity, but the energy is off. The symbolism feels hollow. The sequence feels forced. Every gesture that used to intimidate now feels like a man trying too hard to reclaim something he lost. Even his followers feel it. They sit in silence as he speaks, but it's not reverence, it's discomfort. They are watching a man who no longer believes in his own performance. This discomfort becomes the silent language they all speak now. They communicate through subtle withdrawal, through hesitation, through the inability to hold his gaze. They can't look at him the way they used to because they saw what he is without the curtain. And they can't look at you because you remind them of the moment the curtain fell. They exist in a limbo of loyalty and doubt, suspended between the identity they were conditioned to uphold and the truth you revealed. And slowly, the fear shifts direction. At first they feared you as an anomaly, then they feared you as a symbol. Now they fear you as a possibility, because if you could unmask their leader accidentally, what could you do intentionally? If your mere presence destabilized their ritual, what would happen if you stepped into their world deliberately? They start imagining futures in which you become a force they have to answer to. Futures in which your insight becomes a threat to their traditions. Futures in which your clarity slices through their illusions like a blade they cannot blunt. The leader senses this shift before anyone else. He feels authority slipping not just from his hands, but from his identity. He feels the coven's attention drifting toward the idea of you, even if they never speak your name aloud. He feels himself becoming a relic, and in his desperation to reclaim dominance, he begins making mistakes. He pushes too hard, too fast. He commands instead of guides. He demands instead of inspires. He clings to control like someone grabbing a rope, fraying beneath their fingers. But authority that relies on force is already dead. And the more he asserts himself, the more he reveals how powerless he's become. His aggression becomes a confession. His urgency becomes an admission. His ritual becomes parody. And his coven watches quietly as the man they once feared becomes a man trying to resurrect a ghost. Everything he does now is an attempt to counter you, even though you aren't doing anything. You've become the invisible reference point he measures himself against, the unseen presence he competes with, the silent standard he fears he will never meet. You didn't step into a power struggle. They dragged you into one in their minds. You became part of their mythology without taking a single deliberate step. And this is what marks the true collapse. When a hierarchy starts orienting itself around an external figure, that hierarchy is already dismantled. You became the gravitational force they now revolve around, even in absence. You didn't take their power. They surrendered it by placing too much meaning on your presence. And the more meaning they place on you, the weaker their structure becomes. Because now the real question they fear isn't about their leader. It's about themselves. If they could be controlled by illusion for this long, what else have they surrendered without noticing? What else have they mistaken for power? What else have they kneeled before that wasn't worthy? Your accidental exposure didn't just collapse their hierarchy, it awakened their self-awareness. And self-awareness is fatal to blind obedience. The coven begins confronting a truth they avoided for years. The ritual was never sacred. It was conditioning. The leader was never untouchable. He was theatrical. Their loyalty was never loyalty. It was inertia. And you, without asking for this role, became the catalyst that forced their minds to confront the difference between dominance and display. The moment you walked into that closed-door ritual room, they weren't witnessing an outsider interrupt power. They were witnessing power evaporate in real time. They were witnessing their own participation in a lie. And nothing shatters a psychological hierarchy more violently than the realization that you were willingly held by chains that weren't locked. Now their fear shifts into something sharper, self-reproach. They look back at the rituals they attended, the speeches they applauded, the whispered orders they carried out, and for the first time, they feel embarrassment. Not anger at you, embarrassment at themselves. And that emotion becomes the wedge that splits the coven into fragments, each group silently processing their part in sustaining a leader who collapsed under a single unfiltered gaze. You became the unintentional mirror that reflected back to them every compromise they made, every question they silenced, every instinct they buried. Your presence didn't just expose the leader, it exposed the cost of their compliance. And once someone realizes they played a role in their own confinement, they no longer fear the person who exposed it. They fear the person who made that realization possible. They can't run from you. They can't argue with you. They can't deny what happened. They can only avoid the truth you now represent, which is why none of them will look at you. Not because you did anything to them, but because every time their eyes meet yours, The memory resurfaces like a wound they can't cauterize. You are a reminder that their hierarchy wasn't destroyed by rebellion. It was destroyed by one unscripted moment of reality. The leader feels this shift more intensely than anyone else. His authority wasn't just challenged, it was demystified. And demystified power never recovers. He walks through his own coven with the air of a dethroned figure still wearing a crown he can no longer justify. He tries to maintain rituals that now feel hollow even to him. He tries to speak with confidence that even his voice seems unwilling to support. He tries to gather the fragments of his hierarchy into something whole. But you cannot rebuild a structure once those who upheld it now see its internal wiring exposed. He sees the way his followers avoid him. He sees the hesitation when he speaks, the doubt behind their forced nods, the quiet dread that spreads across the room whenever he begins a ritual sequence. He feels their eyes studying him, not with reverence, but with evaluation. Evaluation he cannot control. He has become the subject of their scrutiny, the very position he spent his life avoiding. And the more desperately he fights to restore his dominance, the more obvious it becomes that dominance was never inherent. It was borrowed, and the person they borrowed it from was their own belief. But belief is gone. You took it with you when you walked out of that room. The coven now exists in a strange psychological limbo, caught between the identity they once served and the truth they can't unsee. They move through their halls like people navigating a world that suddenly lost gravity. They speak in softer tones. They avoid shared glances. They perform their duties with mechanical precision, not out of respect, but out of habit. Rituals continue, but the energy is gone. The atmosphere feels brittle, as if the entire structure might shatter if someone breathes too deeply. And you, ironically, never intended any of this. That's what makes the collapse so poetic. You didn't challenge their hierarchy. You didn't expose secrets. You didn't demand accountability. You didn't even stay long enough to understand what you walked into. You simply opened a door and witnessed what they never wanted anyone to see. Power that only exists when unobserved. Dominance that only works when choreographed. Influence that dissolves under natural light. Your intrusion didn't damage them. It revealed they were already broken. And now, the coven fears what else you might reveal without trying. They fear your clarity. They fear your neutrality. They fear your refusal to be intimidated. They fear that if you were to step into their world again, even accidentally, the remaining fragments of their hierarchy would crumble to dust. You hold a power they can't quantify, the power of unintentional truth. This is why they avoid you in hallways, why they retreat into corners when you pass, why they speak in carefully measured tones when your name is mentioned. They don't see you as a threat. They see you as an ending disguised as a person. And after experiencing the consequences of your presence once, they can't risk another collapse. Not when they're still trying to salvage the pieces of their identity. The leader, however, sees something different in you. To him, you are not just an ending, you are a verdict. The universe delivered a judgment he didn't expect, and it arrived in the form of a gaze he couldn't dominate. He obsesses over that moment with a desperation bordering on delusion. He reimagines the scene in his mind, trying to adjust details that cannot be changed. He asks himself what he could have done differently, what gesture might have saved him, what sentence could have restored the illusion. But there was nothing, because he wasn't defeated by you. He was defeated by authenticity. Authenticity is the one force ritual cannot control. Now he retreats into shadows he once commanded. He isolates himself under the guise of contemplation. But in truth, he is deteriorating. He is drowning in the awareness that his authority depended on no one ever seeing him unprepared. And you saw him at his most unprepared. There is no ritual to erase that, no performance strong enough to overshadow it. He is trapped in a moment he cannot outgrow. And the more he tries to deny its impact, the deeper it pulls him under. Meanwhile, the Coven observes this unraveling with growing discomfort. Their leader once served as their symbol of stability. Now he is the symbol of their mistake. They wonder whether following him was ever a sign of strength, or simply a sign of their own willingness to surrender judgment. They wonder whether submission was disguised as loyalty. They wonder whether they ever truly believed in him, or whether they believed in the narrative he constructed for them. And these questions, the ones he avoided for years, are now the ones suffocating him. Because once self-awareness infects a group, the hierarchy can no longer function. Rituals become rituals only in form. Commands become suggestions. Loyalty becomes performance. And the leader who once dominated them now becomes the figure they silently pity. Nothing erodes respect faster than the realization that fear was misplaced. And so the Coven begins to shift, not with rebellion, but with quiet abandonment. They show up less frequently. They listen less attentively. They obey less rigidly. They follow protocols only when convenient. They no longer treat the leader's presence as a force field. They treat it as an atmosphere they have outgrown. They aren't waiting for a new leader. They aren't looking for a replacement. They are simply detaching from the old structure. And once detachment begins, collapse is no longer a possibility. It is a schedule. You don't witness this collapse directly. You don't participate in it. You don't even think about the Coven after that day. But your shadow lingers in their minds, as if you etched yourself into their internal architecture. To them, you are a reminder that truth doesn't need explanation to cause destruction. It only needs to be seen. Weeks pass, and the Coven becomes more ghost than circle. Members who once dedicated their lives to ritual now begin drifting into new roles, new identities. Some leave entirely, seeking meaning outside the confines of a hierarchy that failed them. Others stay but with empty eyes, moving through motions they no longer believe in. And the leader, he continues trying to resurrect what died the moment you opened that door. But you cannot resurrect a myth once exposed as performance. In private, the remaining members speak about you with caution. They say you carry an energy that disrupts illusions. They say your presence punctures atmospheres others depend on. They say you are unaware of your own influence, which makes you even more dangerous. And in their own way, they're right. You didn't intend to expose an elite occult leader during a closed-door ritual. You didn't aim to shatter a dominance play. You didn't plan to dismantle a hierarchy, but your lack of intention is what made the collapse irreversible. And that's the final truth the Coven must face. Your power is not strategic. It is intrinsic. It is not loud. It is precise. It is not disruptive by force. It is disruptive by nature. You are the kind of presence that reveals rather than attacks. And revealing is the one thing no dominance ritual can survive. The Coven won't look at you not because they fear punishment, but because they fear reflection. They fear what they became. They fear what they enabled. They fear the parts of themselves they discovered the moment the illusion fell. And they fear that if you looked at them again, you would see the remnants of a hierarchy that died under its own weight. Their leader, now a fragment of who he pretended to be, avoids mirrors for the same reason they avoid you. He cannot face the truth that his reign ended without a battle. It ended without defiance. It ended without ceremony. It ended the moment someone walked into a private room and saw him without his mask. And perhaps that is what makes your presence so powerful. Your ability to annihilate illusions without lifting a single intentional hand. You are the quiet force that rewrites atmospheres. The accidental mirror that reveals invisible fractures. The event that unfolds not through action, but through existence. You didn't mean to expose an elite occult leader during a closed-door ritual. You simply walked in. And the moment you did, the truth walked in with you. Their hierarchy didn't fall because you attacked it. It fell because it was never strong enough to withstand being seen. And now, they carry the weight of that realization in their silence, in their avoidance, in the way they look away when you enter the room, quietly acknowledging what they cannot speak. That the dominance they worshipped was shattered, that the coven they belonged to has dissolved, and that you, without meaning to, became the force that ended their illusion forever.